Shalom everyone, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Parashat Beshalach. Last week we were introduced to the end of the journey in Egypt. No more lessons here, we need to go. And the beginning of the living of Egypt, we encounter the traumatic moment when the people of Israel encounter the sea. And the feeling that you have nowhere to go in front of you, and you're looking back and you see the Egyptians chasing after you, this claustrophobic moment when you are caught in a small place. That's the feeling that people of Israel had at that moment. We will go back to this in a second, but when you continue and after we will know that the split of the ocean is going to happen, we will continue to read about moments of only negativity from that moment. They're going to complain that the water wasn't sweet enough, and they're going to complain they have nothing to eat, and when they're going to eat something, which is the manna, it's boring, then they're going to go into eating, there's birds that are going to come from the sky, and then there's going to be another story of water, and all the way in the end, there's going to be this war against the Amaleks. And what are those vignettes trying to show us? What is the story behind this weekly portion? And maybe more than that, what does it tell us? The honest truth that moment in front of the ocean, this despair, this negativity, the feeling that where do we go from now, is something that when I've shared with my kids this weekly portion, they expressed a little bit of it from the feeling of war. Only this week we have so many casualties. Yesterday 21 soldiers died. And the feeling is, where do we go now? And then my youngest daughter reminded us this verse that Moses says, Ityatzevu ur'u et yeshuat Hashem. Behold and look the mercy of God. God is going to show you what He can do in those moments. In the moment after splitting the ocean, the verse says, "Vayaminu ba'Hashem u'b'Moshe avdo," and they believed in God and Moses, His servant. Now, after everything you passed, now this is the moment when you believe. You saw all the plays, you saw everything that happened in Egypt. Why only now? I think that's the connections in those vignettes of the weekly portion. You see, there's one feeling when you know that generally speaking there's hope and God provides to the nation. But there's the question is, what is God providing me as an individual? Everything that happened in Egypt was general, the plagues, the people, the nation. But now when you were struck with the feeling of fear in front of the ocean, every individual had to ask himself, where do I go now? And our sages tell us there were 4 different types of people. Some said, let's go and swim. Some said, let's go back to Egypt. Some said, let's go and fight. Some just begin to cry. As an individual, when you're struck with a challenge, just this war and every other individual channel, this is the question you're asking yourself. Where do I channel the need, the desire? I need to do something. What can I do? It's going to strike us in the end of the portion with the manna. The manna was exactly this example. The people had the feeling that they need to provide food to the family, and they come to God and ask Him, and He says to them, you're going to be provided every day. But then the Sabbath comes. And in the Sabbath, we know that there wasn't a portion of the day of manna, and they had to preserve or to wait that everything would be provided on a Friday. And this is where the notion of believing really changes everything. Because it's one thing to believe, but one thing is to know that God is going to provide to you. And this is the examples that the Sabbath give you. You know that even though you're not going to change everything, you're not going to change anything, you're not going to go and collect, you know that God will provide. Same goes with the war with the Amalek. Moses is going to raise his hand, showing the people, do not be afraid. God is providing in every possible way, in an individual aspect, in a national aspect. To feed your kids, to fight wars, to split the ocean, to provide you water, is there at all moment, at all the time. This weekly portion, Beshalach, is the example of believe. Vayaminu ba'Hashem u'b'Moshe avdo, when they believed in God and Moses his servant. At this moment where every person in the nation understood that God is there to provide in every moment, from the very lowest of the needs to the highest of the needs, that's the moment that believe is going to be realized. Moving forward with the story of the Hebrews in the desert, there's going to be a lot of tests of beliefs. And now and then we're going to hear how they complain and how they return, how they understood and how they forgot. This is the story of the people and the Jewish people. Sometimes we forget that God is there to provide. The younger daughter, Abigail, today told her brothers, do not forget, God will provide at this time like always. And this war, again, is going to be a dramatic symbol of Ityatzvu v'r'u et Yeshuat Hashem. Stand, behold, and see how God is going to provide. He's going to redeem us. This time and that time. Shabbat Shalom.